former Gauteng Health MEC, Hlongwa, his wife, Joeline, and 7 others have been released on bail. They face charges of fraud, corruption, money laundering, and racketeering dating back to over a decade ago. The SIU found Hlongwa's associates were awarded more than R1 billion worth of government contracts. They allegedly provided kickbacks to the then MEC. ENCA's Masego Rahlaga is following that story and joins us now for an update. What a story, Masego. If we're talking about subversion, this would be also issues of subversion of governance in this country, kickbacks, the allegations of kickbacks, racketeering, corruption and fraud, etc. Those are serious crimes. What happened in court today?
Well, Tilas, it was actually quite a short court appearance. The only thing that took long was because, of course, there's so many accused. The only person that we didn't see in court was Richard Payne, the main guy in this case, along with, of course, the former MEC and the ANC chief whip in Gauteng, the former ANC chief whip in Gauteng, Hlongwa, as well as his wife. And so, you know, what happened today was that they were all applying for bail. Richard Payne, of course, as you know, Caesar, is still being extradited from Mauritius. That's the other reason that we've been given as to why this case has taken so long. So they all applied for bail with different lawyers. Of course, they all didn't come here with the same lawyers. Some of them said that they could afford 10,000 rand. One particular person said that he could afford about 20,000 rand. The state was not opposing bail, but they wanted each accused to actually pay 50,000 rand towards their bail. So when the judge did grant bail a little later on, he gave each accused different bail amounts. So that ranged from 20,000 rand, 25,000 rand, and some of them were granted bail of 50,000 rand. There are rules, of course, in terms of you know, what they're expected to do or not to do while they're outside, or while they're outside being granted bail until they come back on the 22nd of April 2022. But here is the magistrate when he handed down that judgment in terms of the bail application.
I consider the evidence that has been adduced by the applicants, as well as the evidence that has been adduced by the respondent. The Act is very clear. Section 60, subsection 11 of the Act provides that an accused person who is charged with an offense that is categorized under Schedule 5 bears the onus to prove on a balance of probabilities, after adducing evidence, that interest of justice requires the release on bail, in the interest of justice, obviously. And the applicants, they've done so. Evidence shows that they are not a flight risk. They've handed themselves over to the police when requested to do so. And there is no evidence that they might interfere with the witnesses, directly or indirectly so. And therefore they have satisfied the requirement of Section 60, Section 11 by using the evidence, and that the interest of justice requires the release on bail. Therefore, bail is granted to all the applicants.
I doubt there'll be much debate, Masego, about the granting of bail, because these are people who've been in the country, have not signaled that they will be wanting to evade standing trial on these allegations. But what will be debated is the extent to which the case can be proven against the accused. What has taken so long, for starters? I mean, these allegations have been lingering in the air, particularly around Hlongwa, for a better part of the decade, and only now is it coming before court. What has taken so long for us to get to this point?
Well, Tilas, of course, we did ask that question, and you're quite right. The Special Investigative Unit was, had applied to investigate some of the tenders that were awarded in the Gauteng Health Department back then. That was, of course, between the 1st of January 2006 and around March 2010. They did actually release a report to the former President Jacob Zuma. He was handed the report in March 2017. He didn't make it public. He didn't release it. He sat on it until a certain organization, a civil society organization, Section 27, started to make a noise about it, and that's when that report by the SIU was released in 2018. So, of course, a lot of people would ask, why did this take so long? Was somebody protecting Brian Hlongwa and everybody else who's accused in this case? Does somebody pay somebody to keep this case quiet until the civil society organization obviously found out that the former president had it on his desk and started making a noise about public interest? So we did ask the National Prosecuting Authority why it's taken so long for the case to be prosecuted, especially because the SIU had already given, the SIU did its part, right, to us back in March 2017. Section 27 then asked him to make it public. So we asked the National Prosecuting Authority's Pindi Law why it's taken so long to finally have this case come into court and for the accused to actually be charged criminally, etc., because they only even were processed at the police station this morning. They were only actually even charged criminally this morning. So the National Prosecuting Authority's Pindi Law saying that, you know, there were a lot of steps that needed to be taken before the NDPP was able to grant permission, or the Director of Public Prosecutions in the region of Gauteng or the province of Gauteng was able to grant them permission to take it to court. She said they needed to give a space to investigating officers, including the Hawks as well, to give them the mounting evidence that we'll hear before court as soon as this becomes a trial. But here is Pindi Law explaining further, our question on why this has taken so long.
Firstly, the investigations in this matter were quite complex. And remember that as the NPA, we don't conduct the investigations. However, we guide investigations. So we were working closely with many stakeholders, of which we had to give them that space and opportunity to conduct their work without any interference from us, but with us rather playing a role of guiding them in preparation for this day.
All right, Masego, let's leave it there for now. We can't wait to see this whole process unfold. And of course, that question you ask is absolutely critical, given that the Special Investigating Unit was able to conduct their part, which has to do with recovering monies. Why couldn't the criminal investigation also be happening at the same time? ENCA's Masego Rahlaga there out at the Johannesburg Magistrates Court, tracking there that case against the former Health MEC in Gauteng. That's Brian Hlongwa.